themselves in a cycle. They would commit to being devoted to God, then they would disobey. God would discipline them. They would repent and God would deliver them, and they would commit to being devout again. The cycle happened over and over. They ignore their compass and would drift. It's easy to find ourselves doing the same thing, not paying attention and moving away from where God intends for us to be. So what do we do when we find ourselves drifting?
Morning. How's everybody doing this morning? Oh man, come on. Are we awake? Yeah. How are we doing? All right. It's going to be kind of a lively message today. We started this series last week on Mother's Day. We started a series on Judges. Had a couple comments about that, but it's a book that Jerry Seinfeld has this bit. You may have heard it before, and it's about the ocean, how the ocean doesn't want us in it, and it does its best to throw us back out when we get in it. And he delivers it much better than I just did. But I think the book of Judges kind of feels kind of like that. It feels like, are we supposed to be in here? Is this something that where does this even fit? Why is this in here? And so today is going to be very, very vivid. I hope it is to us of why this book is so vitally important to you and I. A book that's old, very old. A book that feels rated R. It is rated R. And so today, when we come into this idea of that we are a people who drift, we do. Sometimes we don't drift. We just outright rebel, right? But a lot of times we don't mean to get to a situation where we're in rebellion, but we find ourselves there quite a bit. And as we get there, we find that God doesn't leave us there. And so we pick up in chapter 4. We just talked about Ehud last week, and this guy that was really kind of an unlikely hero in the Bible. And it says that they had a good as long as he continued to live, Israel continued to live a devoted life towards God. And we pick up in chapter 4, and it says, again, the Israelites did evil in the eyes of the Lord, and now that Ehud was dead. And so I want to talk about this word evil for a moment, because at its essence, this is what we read over and over and over again throughout the book of Judges. It's stated like that. And when you and I think about our lives, when we think about our drift, we necessarily don't think about evil, do we? I don't. I think about, the small compromises, a little bit of laziness, maybe just some apathy, and the next thing you know, I'm somewhere I never intended to be. And here again, we read that the Israelites did evil in the eyes of the Lord. Now, I'm just going to ask some rhetorical questions here. Who is it that defines what good and evil are? This is Sunday school answer. It's God, isn't it? It's God. God's the one that sets that definition, isn't it? And the universal problem with all sin is that we have what? We have taken that in our own control, haven't we? We have a God who is, he is full of truth. He's full of justice, and he's also full of mercy and grace. And when you think about it, we think about those things those things I just mentioned. Some of those feel pretty far away from each other, don't they? Mercy and grace. You ever met a person who is full of truth and justice? Okay, they know they can quote you Bible verses. They know them well. They can sit down and explain them to you. Their mind is very sharp, but as you get to know them, there's something very different about their heart. Their heart's hard and cold. Their ability to have sensitivity or compassion is very little. And then, and that's great because it's the idea of truth is solid. It's who God is. Not only do we get this picture from God's character, right? That God, but it's also in His Word, isn't it? Like we read the 10 Commandments, don't we? It's like, He just says, tell the truth, right? Don't bear false witness. Let's just take that one for a moment. And it's like, yes, that's good. You want to live the good life? Tell the truth, right? And so some of us have met people, some of us are people that we just know truth. But I'm telling you, if you don't know both of these things, then you don't know the God of the Bible. If you don't know the God of mercy and grace, you're reading a different Bible. And today, this story is very vivid in those two categories of truth and justice and grace and mercy. And it's spelled out in God's character. God defines what is good and what is evil in His character. It's who He is, right? And He also defines it in His Word. And so we have both, and if you don't have both of those, and you can't, but the danger that we get often is that when we meet people who are just full of mercy and grace, it sounds good, doesn't it? It is good. It's good. It's real good. But you can get to a point where you go like, hey, listen, in our culture, it's like, I'm full of mercy and grace. You kind of just define what truth is in your life. And that's my version of mercy and grace to you. No, that's not the God of the Bible. And so you just you end up deciding what is truth for you. And people that are just saturated with mercy and grace, sometimes you'll find that they just kind of they have trouble bringing in truth sometimes to their lives. And like, how can God tell me what to do? Right? How can there be any absolute truths? And how can He tell me what to do? Because after all, He's a God of grace and mercy. He's given me my own life. I can do whatever I'd like to do. And this is the battle. This is the struggle that we have. And we have to see God in all of this. In all of this. And so when we define evil, it's not us that defines evil, it's God that defines evil. And the Israelites fell into this cycle where they're like, okay. I think one of the saddest verses in the Bible is found in Judges chapter 3, where it says that they've given over their sons and daughters. And they've taken on the lifestyle of the gods of those that live around them. Right? And so what God had set forth for this nation, the promise He'd given them to live in the truth and justice and mercy and grace of who He is and His character and His Word. They had taken that, and they were to be a light into the world, and they looked no different than the rest of the world. And God gives them over to it. And verse 2 says, so the Lord sold them into the hands of Jabin, king of Canaan, who reigned in Hazor, and Sisera, the commander of his army, based in Harosheth and Heglemiah. He had 900 chariots fitted with armor, and had cruelly oppressed the Israelites for 20 years. They cried to the Lord for help. And so you get this that word sold. The other word that we'll read later. It's they use it interchangeably. It's delivered. Maybe you've had something delivered. It's already been sold to you. Now it's delivered. God had said, listen, because these people had decided I'm going. When they took on these other idols, these other gods, God said, "Listen, I'll let you go. If that's what you want to do, if you want to live like that, I'll let you go live like that." And so he handed them over to Jabin, this king who was horrible. And his commander, Sisera, these guys, we think these guys together held together the sex trafficking trade in their area. Okay, now among other things, these guys were horrible guys. We read later that the Israelites couldn't even leave their own homes and walk in their neighborhoods out of flat fear of what would happen. And so we read about these guys, we see them, and we not only that, but God has kind of handed them over to him. It's like, hey, listen, if you want to live like this, if you want to act like I'm not your God, I'll give you another king. And so he does. He gives them Jabin. Gives them that king. And this is where we struggle a lot. I want to take a second and emphasize this. We struggle with the idea that God would hand us over, that God that we would have some consequences. We're okay to come to worship if we're not maybe, and don't get me wrong, life happens, and you've made no decisions, bad decisions, and bad things are happening into your life. That you could be right there, and some of you are. But a lot of us have made bad decisions, and we suffer consequences of it. Consequences are actually they're part of mercy and grace of God. You know that? God uses those to get our attention. He uses those, says, listen, are you sure you really want to live a life without me? Because this is what it's like. Are you sure you really want to choose hell? This is what it'll be like right here. And he gives them a vivid picture of it. And they live it. It says that they live it to the point that they cry out to God. They cry out to God. And 20 years, took 20 years. Listen, don't let it take 20 years for you before you realize that you're some bad place, some far place from God. And but listen, here's the good news. If it takes 80 years, God will still be right there when you come to the realization of that you have strayed, that you have drifted, you have been living in disobedience, and actually you've been living in this area of life that is really just a pit. And some of you, we live there, and we come, and sometimes we come to worship living in that pit, and we think, Lord, when you going to show up? I'd raise my hand in worship. I'd sing a little louder. But feels like you're not showing up. What's going on? And we get into this mode where we think, okay, if only I didn't have this stuff happening. And when you look really hard, a lot of times it's consequences of our own decisions to be our own God, to choose how we define what evil is, what we define what is wrong and what is right. And we live in that. We live in that cycle. Let's just look at the cycle again here real quickly that we started to look at last week. This idea that we start with devotion to God and then we drift. It's disobedience, discipline. God comes and delivers us, and it seems like we do this again. This is what the Israelites are living in this cycle. And I just encouraged you last week to be honest with yourself, because we're all in this cycle somewhere. I hope it's on the top of the chart, but it may not be. And you may need to hang on. Am I defining what is right and wrong in my own life, or am I allowing God to do that? And we see that God is going to use this army that Jabin has and Sisera has, all of these chariots. These chariots were fitted with armor, so these would have been the tanks of the day. All right? And they cry out to the Lord. Now listen, I love this. I love this because the lady we're going to talk about, the prophet that we're going to talk about today is Deborah. And we think about, okay, now there's a problem. All right, God has a problem, and he's going to raise up a leader, raise up a judge to take care of this. And we read that that's not the case here. God he did not raise somebody up. There's somebody already there. There's somebody right in the place that they need to be already. And listen, it says, now Deborah, a prophet, the wife of Lapidoth, was leading Israel at the time. Interesting, right? Interesting. Some of you go like, I got a New Testament verse that says that doesn't sound right? It's like women shouldn't be leading anything. Like, listen, if that's holding you back, you need to reread what Paul is saying here, all right, and compare it to what God is doing all over the Bible and how God treats women. And so, listen, if you're not listening to godly women, you need to. You need to. So here we read that she'd been in this role for a while, and people, and it didn't seem like a new thing. People were coming. It says that she was there. Matter of fact, they even named the palm after her. She held court underneath the palm of Deborah. So it's like, oh, they got her own spot. This would have been a normal role for a dude. We don't know why the guy that was really supposed to be in charge wasn't in this role. But God had her there all along. And a lot of times the answer for you and I is right in front of us. And I'll tell you, in this case, it is. It's Jesus. And we're going to see that clearly here today. And so she's been deciding things. She's been, holding court. People will come with their disputes, and she would okay, this is what needs to happen. Here it is. She would lay this out, and people would go like, okay, that's what we need to do. And it says she sent for Barak, and this guy. So we have Lapidoth, we have Deborah, and we have this guy, Barak. Okay, these are the key leaders of the day. Barak is like the army commander, dude. Okay, and we read that Deborah now, she says, the Lord of Israel commands you to go, take with you 10,000 men of Nettel to Zebulun and lead them up to Mount Tabor. And so she gives the command. This is even kind of more odd. She's like, hey, by the way, get the army together. You're gonna go meet Sisera. Now they gather a number of 10,000. This would have been a joke in light of how many chariots there were. So so like these guys, these foot soldiers are going up against tanks is what is going on. And they're not even on horseback. They're just on foot. This is a big deal here. God wants to be very clear on who is making things happen. All right. Have you ever been in a spot? Maybe you're there now and you've been trying to get out of the spot on your own. You've come up with some ideas. You're like, I'm just going to work the problem, and I'm gonna get out of it myself. And the answer is really Jesus, but you're coming up with some other way to get out, some other genius way to get out of it. Well, God wants them to know, there's no other way out of this. It's me. I'm going to do this for you, and this is the way it's going to work. He says, verse 7, I will lead Sisera, the commander of Jabin's army, with his chariots and his troops to Kishron Valley, to the Kishron River, and give them into your hands. Now, this is interesting because she said this boldly. And listen, Barak said to her, listen to what he says. If you go with me, I will go. But if you do not go with me, I won't go. What? is going on here? This is Deborah's depth of character and leadership ability here shines through. What we're going to read in the next few verses here is what I believe the earliest definition of discipleship. He says, "Listen, I don't know that I'm going to go. I'll go if you go." And you know what Deborah says? Deborah says, "Okay, I will go with you." She said, it says, certainly I will go with you," said Deborah. "But because of the course you are taking, the honor will not be yours, but the Lord's. The Lord will deliver Sisera into the hands of a woman." So Deborah went with Barak to Kadesh. So it's interesting here, and also that little statement. It's like, hey, listen, you're not going to get the honor here at all. And I don't know. I think maybe she knows this guy. I don't know. You ever known somebody who was kind of honor hungry a little bit? They're like, "Oh, I can't wait for God to do that so I can stand in front of him and go, hey, check me out. Who God did, but I was here, right?" And she saves him. It's almost like she saves him from himself. This is discipleship at its a beautiful picture of discipleship here. She said, "Hey, go," but he said, "I don't know whether I can go or not." "Okay, you can't do it on your own. I'll go with you. Let's go do it together. I'll show you," right? And then she says, "By the way, this isn't about you. It's not about you." And I think sometimes we struggle with it. I know I do. I struggle with it. And I've told you this before. It's not what I do wrong necessarily. It's what I do right that gets in the way. And they're like, "Check out, I just did that right. Look, did anybody see that? God, did you see that? That's really great." And we get in the way of what God's doing in our own lives sometimes because we can't get out of the way enough. And she saves him from it. I think it's just a beautiful picture of what's happening in her leadership ability. It says, "Certainly I will go with you," said Deborah. "But because of this course you're taking, honor will not be yours. The Lord will deliver Sisera into the hands of a woman." And boy, we're gonna see that play out here. And there Barak summoned Zebulun and the Naphtali and the 10,000 and went under his command. Deborah went up with him to Hebron, to Kenite, and the Canaanites and descendants of Hobah and Moses' brother-in-law, and pitched his tent by the great tree of Zebulun near Kadesh. And when they were told Sisera that Barak's son Abram had gone to Mount Tabor, Sisera summoned from Harosheth of Harameek to the Kishron River all of the men, all of his 900 chariots fitted with armor. Then Deborah said to Barak, "Go, this is the day the Lord has given into your hands." And so it's almost like there's some constant hesitation here. She has to remind him it's time to go. You know it's time to go. You know what your job is. Go do it. And sometimes we know what we're supposed to do, but we play it off like we're gonna search for more wisdom in it. You ever played that card before? You know, someone's kind of challenged you. It's like, you should do that. You know, I don't know. I'm going to pray for more wisdom. It's like, well, it kind of says it right there. You should go do that. Maybe you should go do it. She has to remind him again, go do that. And so they go and they meet. And God says he routes the army in a way that they just take out all these chariots. They take out the whole army. And Sisera is found without a chariot anymore. He's on foot. And now he's running back to what he thinks is an ally, and this is the really kind of the pivotal point of the whole story, because God now is going to bring justice and mercy. in this pretty amazing way that some of us are going to question, can that be in the Bible? Can that really happen? Is that really something that we're supposed to do? And it says that Barak pursued the chariots and the army, and Sisera's troops fell by the sword. Not a man was left. Meanwhile, he fled to the foot of Jael, the wife of the Hebron, the Kenite, because there was an alliance between Jabin, king of Hazor, and the family of Heber, the Kenite. And so he runs back, Sisera runs back to this tent, and he meets this lady, and he knows her because they're in alliance with each other. Jael went out to meet Sisera, and he said to him, "Come, my lord, come right in. Come on in, don't be afraid." So he entered her tent. She covered him up with a blanket. He says, "I'm thirsty," he said. "Please give me some water." She opened the skin of milk, gave him a drink, and covered him up. Standing in the door of the tent, he told her, "If someone comes by and asks, 'Is someone in there?' say no." But in Hebrew, what's really being said here, it's a masculine tint to it. If he's like, what he's really saying is, somebody comes by and asks us if there's a man in here, say no. And Jael's probably thinking, "Yeah, you're right. There's no man in here." Because you're a deserter. You're the furthest thing from a man I've ever seen. You're running. You're like a coward. You're not standing and fighting. And so we get this picture of it. But then it says, but Jael, Heber's wife, picked up a tent peg and a hammer and went quietly to him while he lay fast asleep, exhausted. She drove the peg through the temple through his temple into the ground, and he died. And it's like, okay, what do we do with that, right? It's like, wow, And so you get this pieces of the story where we start to have some real moral conflicts, don't we? It's like this guy went to this nation that he thought he had an alliance with, thought he was a friend, thought it was going to be a friend. This lady lies to him, says like, "Come on in, don't be afraid, don't worry about anything," and she kills him. It's like, what? Not only that, she drives this tent peg through his temple, and so this is a vivid picture of not some moral dilemma. Is this gonna, are we just able to go murder people who are our enemies? No. Jesus addresses that, doesn't he? What does he say? How to treat our enemies? Love them. Yeah. But this is a vivid picture of what Christ has come to do. How Christ has come to fix things, to do the heavy lifting for you and me, for everybody. And don't miss it. Don't miss it in all that's taking place here, because we have a God that is full of truth and justice and mercy and grace at the same time. This is the answer to the cry. This is how God was going to solve the problem. This is who he used. Now, some of us will digest that a little bit differently than others. But it was just as difficult. I think probably even more difficult for when those that had lived with Jesus, spent time with him, knew him well, seen him do miraculous things, when the plan was for all along for him to die a gruesome death. It was difficult. It was hard for them to even imagine that that's how God would come and solve any kind of problem. That he would die a criminal's death. That there wouldn't just be one tent peg involved, but three. And it would be through his hands and through his feet. I'm going to ask the band to make their way up. It would be through his hands and through his feet. And as I alluded to a few weeks ago, the cross for hundreds of years was seen as an instrument of death for the worst criminals. And for God to use that as something for grace and mercy and for justice. Do you know, he stepped in and was justice for you and me. Completes the story of you and me, of why and how we can have any kind of a relationship with God, let alone the kind of relationship that is now restored to the equality of the relationship as it was in the very beginning. Do you realize that? You can walk and talk with God. The Spirit of God can dwell in you and me. This story, the reason this story is in the Bible is so that we see God that is full of truth and justice, and he doesn't waver from it, but he's a God of grace and mercy in the most beautiful way. Everything collides perfectly, and he became his own, the sacrifice that you and I needed to bring us back. He hears your cries. No matter how far, how long, it doesn't matter. Don't wait though. Don't wait 20 years. And what he is able to restore for you and me is not something that will just last for 80 years or 100 years. It's something that will last for all eternity. That's the picture. That's why we have this story in Judges, so we can see vividly God work in his truth, in justice, and in his grace. Close your eyes with me. God, we come before you and we admit we drift. Sometimes we look around and we don't even know how we got where we're at. And we're so grateful that you're a God. You're a God that is unchanging. And may you remind us you're the one that defines what evil is, what sin is, not us. And Lord, may that impress on our hearts to run to you all the more quickly. God, we thank you for this picture, this story that emulates who you are, shows us vividly. And may we know that the answer to it all is found in Jesus.